Okay, guys, Anthony with Austin Historical Weapons Guild. Again, we're at Vigilante, letting us hang out, use their space while they are being safe and shutting down for the short period. So, we start off again with this Zwerchau. The last couple tries of this fell apart horribly. So, hopefully, this time it will pick up and work a little bit better. So, talking about the Zwerchau, it is Zwerchau, the cross strike, the crossing strike. There's lots of names for it. The primary kind of description is it's this horizontal strike that comes across the lines across the body and is really used to set aside attacks, set up angles, working through things. Again, this is one of the master strikes, so again, it starts to break those rules we had from our good cuts before. So it's not going to talk about those straight arms and everything else with those motions. This breaks the rules in fun, interesting ways. The other half of this, again, is it takes about a tempo and a half instead of a single tempo that our regular strikes like to do, but it gets you out of the knock in a reactive position and taking the vor, controlling the fight, going to strike again. So easiest way to pick up a Zwerchau, learning a Zwerchau, is starting with the sword flat on your shoulder, kind of like so. We're going into what we call the thumb grip. So instead of our regular kind of handshake grip, I'll kind of come up and demonstrate this real quick. So our handshake grip is here, where we are locked, embraced, and everything's secure. Again, like we talked about shaking hands with a sword, we're going to a thumb grip, which is going to rotate the blade about 90 degrees, putting our thumb on the flat. I will often extend my palm away. Still trying to keep this structure here, but really opening up the hands. If I switch hands real quick, from this position. So you're kind of seeing the flat of the palm pushing through as you come through. So again, keeping your down hand on top. This is our position for our so-called thumb grip. Right. So handshake grip, regular grip here, rotate to our thumb grip. So again, when starting the Zwerchau, the easiest starting position to begin with to work from, starting the sword flat on your shoulder and just really thinking about pressing out and extending your hands high, getting it above your head. So this will come across. If you're doing this properly, you'll get your strong on the weak middle of your opponent's blade. And as you step forward, you can set it aside, coming in with the strike. This is shown, this is talked about as being a strike, as driving into control, coming through, displacing, and moving there. There's a bit more footwork, which we'll dive into later, but that's kind of as a starting point where the strike is going, where the strike is trying to do. We're going from this grip from the shoulder here, coming out, pressing across with this motion. So it's important to notice and think about that I'm not really moving the sword on much of a vertical angle. Everything's across horizontally. So going back to things, it's important to remember that this power, this structure is coming from our hips moving, right? I'm not sitting here pulling my arms across, kind of torquing my shoulders, pulling through here. I'm raising my hands, letting my hips drive this motion through. And once you get comfortable with this position, with this extension, and just kind of getting used to driving power in this horizontal plane without any motion from your arms, especially using this back edge of this thumb grip, we can start making this slightly more complicated, slightly more practical, slightly more useful as we dig into things. So again, starting from a good grip, this time in our Vontag with our shoulder tuck low, moving through here. If this is your first step, you can even from here just start getting used to transitioning to this thumb position and coming out with the cut on the fly. Notice by keeping myself kind of tucked and cramped as I'm doing this, I'm not able to extend my hands over my head, which is one of the important things about this cut, because this is what keeps you safe. Down here, I'm leaving all this exposed. This is not useful. I really want to make sure that as I'm doing this, those hands are coming high, driving across, driving through. This is when the Pell really starts to struggle, because the Pell is kind of assuming this position, not a high cutting position. So this cut, even though it looks like I'm missing, would be effective, would be being useful. And it's important to make sure that when you're practicing drilling that you are aware of what your training tools are simulating, right? So if I think of this as a cut, this is way too low. When you're dealing with, cuts would come from here. And as you can see, it's a much higher position. So when I throw this cut to the proper height, I'm clearing the sword, but extending me hands to the right position I want to be in. So just being aware, watching me going through this, I'm not going to be sitting here like this because this is too low. I want those hands up, want everything extended, want everything pressing forward. So once you get used to this kind of transition, right, where we're just kind of quickly moving from here, but we're still thinking, I'm throwing this Zwerchau immediately, right? I'm still in this position where, oh, a cut's coming in, I'm gonna throw a Zwerchau, and it immediately moves out. And you can start to make this work. This is when we start talking about the idea of springing, taking our leap off to our right side or spring off to the right side. And that's going to start changing your angles of your attack and affecting how and when and what you're catching, displacing as things move. So really getting used to this idea of my nice Montag position, bringing, stepping to the side, bringing that cut across. Quickly facing the camera so you can see what I'm talking about. I'm here in my Montag. As I just immediately go to this cut, I'm going to step to my side and bring that across, right? So this is kind of the level 2, stage 2 of getting a Zwerchau to work and be useful as you drive. So just from the shoulder, we're no longer starting in that flat position, but we're up in a normal grip. As I decide I want to do something, I'm just moving out, driving it across and through. And you can see I'm finishing, hands are high, I'm stretching my brakes forward, I'm ready to attack, ready to push through. You can do this with a larger leap, and really get into that springing idea. So once I'm here, I might spring more like that and really turn, really change your angle, change your direction, change your facing to start applying this. The easy way I think about that positioning, that angle, is I tell people be ready to tackle your opponent, drive into your opponent after you make your leap. If you kind of do this springing motion here, and you can already see I'm starting to fall away to the back, I'm not in position to attack where I'm going, attack my opponent, that's not going to be useful. If I'm here, I make this spring, and I'm braced, ready to drive forward, that's the way that this Zwerchau, this attack, this leaping motion is going to be useful and effective in your fencing. So as a last recap, the kind of third step that I like to do with this Zwerchau is finding that home base that we've been talking about before. So if you remember way back when we talked about our main cuts from high and pulling down, we said this was big, dumb, and slow. So we went to shoulder. From shoulder, we'd kind of cast, much people hate that word, I'd reach out to that high structure position and pull down again, right? And this makes a faster cut and less telegraph cut than this one, but I'm not losing any of the structure that I get from sitting in this high guard with straight arms the entire time. If I want to be really tricky, really sneaky with my cuts, I start throwing my master cuts not from my shoulder, but from this position. So I already know I'm going to react. As soon as someone throws a sword, if my sword's not out in trouble, if my sword's not out in front of me ready to do something, it needs to be out there immediately. Once I'm here, I can kind of decide, oh, what do I want to do? And this is when I might think, oh, I should throw a Zwerchau. And I can start to stir that strike as a kind of follow-up from this motion. So now our base position is no longer here. This isn't where I've decided what I want to do. I can decide what I'm doing way out here, which may seem like a small change, a small corollary, but it gives you a lot more time to read what your opponent is doing, decide what you want to do, and kind of make sure you're not just twitch reacting to something that you don't want to react against. So same things are applying, right? Starting in our nice Montag. I've been seeing the stance a little bit more, so I look a little bit better. As I throw this cut up high, I said, here I decide, not here. Here I'm just saying, oh, they're doing something, I should countercut. So I throw my sword. Once I'm here, I say, oh, this is a good time as a Zwerchau, because now I've had an extra millisecond or two to realize what's going on. Their sword's a little bit closer, I can see what they're doing a little bit longer. And now, cool, oh, I should do a Zwerchau, and I can drop this in and throw this strike through. Notice this is a much, much easier time of me keeping my hands high and keeping them safe and throwing my cut to come across and control everything. So again, level 3 is Zwerchau, getting used to this position, throwing it high, coming off with this leap, coming with that strike to control, displace, and attack. So that's where that extra tempo and a half kind of comes from. It's not going to be as fast as something like this, but I'm saving that by making this a little bit extra space when I leap to the side. I'm dropping this in a different angle. So I'm closing off the center sooner because I've moved where the center is. So that's where that kind of 1.5 tempos comes from. It's not going to be as fast as just throwing a normal cut, But from here, as this cut comes out, I'm moving around behind my sword, pulling my hands up and away from their attack, as opposed to keeping it behind my blade. And the sword comes out, catching whatever else they're throwing at, and doing things. So you can kind of see, I'll try to do it a little bit lower against the super low guard here. See what I'm really talking about? So if I'm down super low, I throw my cut, leap to the side, kind of see I catch with my strong, pushing away, driving forward with that cut. So just getting used to throwing high, dropping through. One of the other things that's worth mentioning with this Zwerchau is kind of the cutting plane and the cutting angle, and how you need to be aware of how everything is coming across. Pun not intended that time. So if I just sit here, my sword perfectly horizontal, I can spin like this and I'll have a nice even cut at exactly one height. And that's great if my target's at that one exact height, but odds are that's not going to be the case. If I kind of sit this angle and I'll drop my tip and I spin in that same circle, what was a nice straight cut from here now becomes kind of a beach umbrella. And you can't cut rotating like a beach umbrella. What you need to wind up doing with this cut is, if you need to cut a bit lower, you're going to start dropping the sword and bringing it through. And I know I've talked about this before, this only really matters if you're trying to cut through cleanly with something. If you're taking a sharp metal stick, swinging at someone's head, no matter how you hit them in the head with this, they're not going to be having a good day. If you're trying to cut cleanly through something like tatami or water bottles or doing normal cutting practice, start thinking about the fact that this cut needs to come at a slight angle, and the sword blade needs to be on that path the entire time. Better people than myself, like Sean Franklin, have talked about this in more depth. Feel free to look it up on his Sword Stem site. But otherwise, I think that kind of wraps up everything for Zwerchau for tonight. Kind of the third or fourth shot trying to shoot this video. Kind of leave them all up for posterity, but we'll leave this one up as kind of the main one. I think the other one's lost sound halfway through. But as always, guys, if there are questions, comments, disbelief, dislikes, whatever, feel free to reach out. Also, Historical Weapons Guild on Facebook, historicalweaponsguild.com, shoot me an email, anything like that. And otherwise, thank you very much. And we're back momentarily with the next video.